Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back after our lunch break. This is Ballroom 2. To introduce myself, my name is Didi Suhume, and I will continue to be your moderator for the rest of the day. I hope you're having a good time at the Finance Indaba. There's a lot of opportunities. If you could make your way around, just to help you with your navigation, these along this end are ballrooms. So on your program, if you're looking for boardrooms, you need to come out of the two doors that are at the front, and as if you're going to the lavatory, flowing left, you will find boardrooms, and those will direct you to the FinTech Center as well. So now we're going to start the afternoon session. I think we've got a really great two people on our panel, and our theme on this talk is breaking into the C-suite. Please help me welcome Mohammed Abdul Samad, who is the CFO of Ilevo, and Ramasela Ganda, who is the CFO of Barlow World Equipment. A round of applause for them, please. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. I think I'm very privileged to have the both of you join me on this talk. So we've been speaking about a lot of things with different CFOs this morning, and now we have the opportunity to really get an understanding of what it is like to be a C-suite executive. I'll start with you, Ramasela. Did you really see yourself as a CFO? Was that your intention, and were you purposeful about it and to pursue it, or did it just happen by sheer luck?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Mine was to be the chief executive.
Okay.
So I am still on my way there.
Okay.
And just to say that I finished being the CFO of Barlow World Equipment on the end of September. I'm now executive head of business services.
Okay,
so I'm moving slowly towards there. But yeah, CFO, yes, that was something that I've always looked up to, and people that were CFOs before. I mean, my first CFO's job that I always repeat, I was a successor to a CE. The lady that was a CFO, I think she started being a finance manager or even an accountant, and she moved all the way to become the CFO, and then she recruited me to replace her, and then she became the CE. So I had a very great role model, and because she was a CA, to me it meant, okay, CAs are not up to CFO level.
Okay.
And that was more than a decade ago, even longer, when she just graduated. That was the first, for me, a chartered accountant that I saw graduating to be a CE that I know personally. You know, you read about it mostly. We used to see a lot of engineers moving into the CE role, but we never thought, one of our kind, if I may use an accountant for that matter, heading a property company. So yes, it's been a journey, but it's been something that I've always been looking for. And I'm still very passionate about finance. Even I think I'm going to struggle with the transition though.
Congratulations, nevertheless. Thank you so much for joining us. And I must ask the same question. I must ask if it was intentional on your part. Did you decide to strictly want to be a CFO, or did it come to you?
No, I think when I first started my career in Durban, I actually didn't know what I wanted to become. So you try different things. I was in an auditing firm. So I was trying different things, auditing, forensics, some M&A work, etc. But what I did know is I definitely wanted to be part of a big organization. And when the opportunity came to join Anglo American at the time, which was, in the JSE top 20, at the time, it was really iconic to want to work for Anglo American. And I must admit, I bullshitted my way onto a project that I was a risk management expert from a global team that was implementing risk management across Anglo, and managed to wangle my way onto the team and ended up staying at Anglo. And then sort of started off in risk management, audit, and then I think probably 6 or 7 years into my career at Anglo, I decided I wanted to be an FD of one of the Anglo divisions. And at a very early age, I was offered the head of audit of Anglo Platinum at the time, and I turned it down, and it would have been a massive leap for me in terms of where I was, because I was just hell-bent on wanting to become an FD of a division, which eventually happened at the coal division, where I didn't start off as an FD. I started off doing the head of sort of financial reporting, all the IFRS stuff, which was very dangerous ground for the coal division at the time, because I had to really get out the IFRS books and brush up on the change in standards, etc., because you do get rusty quite quickly. And then, you know, the opportunity came, and I grabbed it. So I was very fortunate. But I think it's about when you decide what you want, there'll be lots of distractions along the way in terms of people throwing quick fixes and opportunities that might pay a lot of money and might seem very attractive at the time. But I think you've got to stick to your goals. That's quite important.
It sounds like the both of you have been quite deliberate. Let's talk about being deliberate about self. And I'll come back to you, Ramasela. At what point, I saw you nodding when he said, I was given an opportunity which was great, and possibly the money's great. And at that point, you're thinking, my career could just be taking a lift off here. At what point in you being deliberate do you say, hold on, I'm going to stick this out? Do you write down your goals perhaps personally? What do you do?
You know, I even write down, I've got my own book, you know, I guess little girl never die inside of me of having a diary. I still have my personal diary about my strategy and my vision and where do I see myself. You know, it sounds like a cliche, but if you sit on, you don't have to answer to anybody. You answer to yourself, and that's what I do. And I wrote it down and say, this is what these are the things that I need to achieve in life. And I remember when I was leaving Anglo, my focus was to go to government. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I remember Anglo showing me all the bright greens so that you can think about it. And my focus was, this is where I said I must go and serve. And will this still take me to the direction that I want to achieve in my career? And I was not deviating. I was still going to be a CFO, but I wanted to be a CFO of a public entity. I actually wanted to be a CFO of department, and I had no idea what that meant. But I wanted to go to Home Affairs so bad, because at that time, Home Affairs was always qualified, and we had so many dramas, and I'm like thinking, I must go there. And because of that plan, that this is where I want to go, even when I used to get calls when I was in public sector, those calls were like destructive for me. I was like, I am on this journey, and my journey say I must go and serve, and I'll serve in finance, and I will, you know, I was focused and determined about what I wanted to achieve. I knew nothing about public sector. It is a different world completely, but fun. Contrary to popular belief, right? It is fun. I see some of my former colleagues around the room. What made it quite fun and really for me was I had to invest a lot in understanding. I didn't go there with this whole public sector must be easy, because it's not. I went there and I invested in me understanding even politics, I don't know if you'll ever understand it fully, but got to some level of an accountant politics, got to understand the acts, you know, a constitution became my friend, and I'm like thinking, but I was always a South African, but I never got to invest in understanding the constitution. But what being in public sector called for that for me, right? So there were a lot of things, but I promise you, I'm sure some people are fortunate in life that things can happen by mistake, but maybe for the rest of us, we have to be determined and focus and have a plan. And as an accountant, I think we know how to do a plan.
Mohammed, if you'll just allow the both of us to engage Ramasela and ask her about what were the challenging parts of being a CFO in a municipality, coming from a private sector background, and you knowing what you want in your mind, and you sticking it through the most challenging times. How did you get through that?
You know, I think I had good induction, because prior to going to municipality, I was already a couple of years in public sector, and the biggest, you know, I mean, I think this is still my nightmare today. The biggest shock of my life was, I think I was 3 months in a job in public sector, and there was already a strike, and in the board, there was already my name written on it that I must be fired. And I'm like, I have never thought a toi in my name will happen in my life. I'm like, I'm an accountant, I'm not a principal of a school, I'm not a minister. But what it does, it toughens you. You build a thick skin. And one of the things that you already learn very quickly is that you cannot compromise who you are. If you walk into any public sector without your own personal values, you are gone. That's the first thing. You need to walk in there with, strong values, strong support system, and reach out. I think one of the things that I've learned along the journey was I reach out to people that were public and private sector based, and my mentors and my coach. I mean, I think during my period in public sector, my mentors grew from 2 to a very big number, and coaches along the way. But support becomes very important. It's a tough world. It's a tough world that needs very tough people, but the reward of it, I mean, municipality, I had my induction. I was well trained. I used to look at councillors and I'm like thinking, Etoy was in my name already some years back, so I'm ready. So that helped me a lot to face the challenges and also build a very strong team. One of the things that Ekurhuleni allowed me to do when I walked in was to look at what we have with regard to the capability and actually understanding what I can gain from the people that I'm working with, and also adding other people. I think one of the things that we're doing so bad as profession, as accountant out there, is that we look, and point a finger, but there is a call on all of us at one stage of your life. I always say there's certain things that we must do, and all of us at some point, we need to go and serve. It's such a rewarding thing. It's very painful, but so rewarding. You end up not even calling it serve.
Okay.
You call yourself a municipal officer with pride.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Mohammed, I think maybe she went through some pain, and I think pain comes in different forms. Can you speak to us about a possible challenging time that you faced and you thought, okay, now I'm really changing my mind?
Look, I think this whole thing's about the sort of breaking into the C-suite. But I was quite young when I was appointed CFO of Anglo Coal, and you find, I don't know whether the older executives have some initiation thing that they have to go through. So they constantly challenge you, they constantly push you, they constantly interrogate every decision that you're taking. So I often when I was there, would really doubt myself as to, am I making the right decisions? Am I doing the right things? Am I valued as part of the group? Why are these guys really challenging me? But I think it's just human nature. People, you're the new kid on the block, and people want to test you. So for me, the most important thing is, you got there. You gotta just recognize that you got there on pure merit. And you got to do the things that got you there. So you got to think the same way, you got to respond the same way, you got to use the same logic, and you got to back yourself. So I often would go home thinking, sure, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. But I think once you stick to your guns and you start to demonstrate the value, it's amazing how you win people over. And they almost become your allies, and they're your partners sitting in the executive. It's very different when you then move to another company. Oh, you came from Anglo American, so it's like a totally different vibe. But when you're a young person sort of just breaking through, it's quite tough and it's quite daunting.
And you just spoke about allies, and I think what's important here is let's chat about relationships. Ramasela, you said it's good to have a good support base, and it's good to have mentors. Mohammed, who did you have on your side when you were second-guessing yourself? Because I can imagine there were opportunities in the morning when you thought, geez, should I really go back there today?
Yeah, look, I think when you building your career, you do have lots of mentors, and you do have people that you try and model yourself against. You take positive attributes from different people as you move toward in your career, and you try and learn from that. So in my career, I've always looked, you know, geez, I really like the way this particular individual handled the situation, and therefore it's something I'd like to adopt as a characteristic. And I think it's quite important to do that. So when you do get to difficult situations, you know, the reality is you can have all the mentors and people that have sponsored you through your career, but the important thing is to dig deep and use those attributes that you've learned and model yourself against to be able to deal with the issues. But you know, networking for me is a big thing and it's quite important. And if you're well networked, it's sometimes just good to give people a call and discuss what the issues are and for them to help you through it. But you don't necessarily want people intervening on your behalf. You know, I think it's sometimes seen as a sign of weakness. Right. You know, you've got to be able to deal with the issues yourself, but it's good to have a friend to call from time to time.
Ramasela, who have been your allies? Is it someone you can go back to at home that you can speak about the issues with? Or have you found that in the business you've perhaps partnered with other executives that have helped you and your role so that you can be better established?
You know, it varied along the way. You know, I do have both. You know, there are those that will talk about, you know, just general principle and just engage without specific. But internally, it's very important to have that support as well, to build good relationship with people. Because, let me say this, to even get to the C-suite, it's about sponsorship. When people sit around the table, they must talk about you. You must be in someone else's lip that they can say, we can recommend this person for that. Opportunity comes. So if you are really shying away and you're not showing, you know, sometimes you become too modest, you don't want to be seen. You need sponsors. As individual, as we grow, we need sponsors. What happens is, you know, it's word of mouth. Somebody recommends you for something and you have to put yourself out there. And that's what happens in some of the areas that have been that, you know, it's just, oh, Ramasela can do this. And you hear about it from someone completely different, not even your sponsor, but it's because of those that you build. But outside as well became very important, especially when I was in government, that I needed to understand how to you know, navigate through the politics of a country, how to navigate through certain things. And me being pure accountant, I needed that support. I needed someone that will guide me. I mean, mentors that have been there in the same place that have said, you know, this is what made me survive. And that helped over the period.
So I think you also agree with Mohammed in that networking is definitely important. Let's speak about once you get into the role and you're new to it. What is perhaps, to assist somebody in the audience who's just going to get there as well, how do you keep your grounding? What did you do, Ramasela?
You know, there are a lot of people that look up to you. And one of the things that we tend to do is, you know, get so busy in our own space. Firstly, you've got your own anxiety about your new role. You also want to impress in your new role. And you forget that there's a world around you, that there are people that are looking up to you. One of the things that I've learned over the years is as we go up, we must just hold on to that ladder. We must be able for someone to step, you know, and look up to us and saying, even though Ramasela has moved here, she's there, you know, she is still reachable, I think for me that is so important that we must always never forget where we come from. And in that way, they give you, if people know and they can trust you, they give you good feedback about even your leadership style. And those are the things that will also mold us. Those are the things, whether professionally, technically, in any other way that you used to have a relationship with people. If you continuously do that, you continuously motivate people. I mean, if we talk about productivity, if we talk about performance, people, you know, they always say people resign from the bosses, they don't resign from the company. So you want to be that person that people will look up to, and people that will say, even after Ramasela leave, I'll take the position. You know, I'm not afraid. I know what she's been through. I might not share with them everything, but the things that are critical for them to know and how to navigate in their areas. But communication upwards, downwards, sideways becomes very important. Be out there and let people reach you.
Yeah, I think a valid point that you're making there is being approachable. Mohammed, can you speak to us about new role phobia? You said that you hit the CFO mark at a young age, but you also joined other institutions. How do you cope with that, learning the new culture, the new people?
Yeah, look, I think it's quite important in the first instance to be humble in your new role. So that's quite key. It's important to build partnerships within your executive team. I think that's quite critical to be in a successful CFO. You're the one person who has a view of the business from end to end, and therefore you need to be able to play in those spaces without necessarily sort of trampling on people's toes. So, you need to be able to play in the procurement space, the commercial space. You need to be able to contribute to strategy. You need to be able to contribute to HR. So I think for me, the most important thing is about building those networks. I agree with Ramasela that you do need to play a very strong mentoring and development role to the people within the organizations. So you need to understand the culture of the organization. You need to definitely mentor. One of the things that I tell people is that you need to be able to challenge quite a bit, but you need to be able to challenge with humility. So you can't challenge and come across as being arrogant and as being challenging just for the sake of challenging or being difficult. So it's got to be very constructive. And I've had stories of challenging where I got into a lot of trouble. When I was at Anglo, before I was an FD, I thought I was going to get fired after this, but fortunately I didn't. I was told to go and make a presentation at the Anglo executive because my boss couldn't make it. He was in London. And the presentation was to the chief executive at his direct reports. So it was Tony Trey at the time who headed up Anglo and was the head of Mondi, the head of base metals, the head of platinum and De Beers, etc. So all these guys in a room, this naive sort of Durban boy walking in, presenting the report, and Tony Treyer didn't agree with something in the report, and I disagreed with him, and I said, no, well, actually, you're wrong. It's this is the story, and then all the other executives almost fell off their chairs, and David Hathorn, who was also a Durban boy, kind of nudged me and said, you never disagree with the boss. You just agree with whatever he says. So the next day, I was called into Tony Treyer's office, and I thought, this is it. I might as well pack up. That's the end of me. And so I got there, and he just wanted to have a conversation around that aspect. Mm-hmm. And we agreed to disagree. But apparently, I was the first person to challenge him in a meeting. And so I really did think my career was going to go very, very south in Anglo. But funny enough, he became a sponsor, as opposed to the guy that was going to fire me. So I think in hindsight, had my boss told me, don't challenge Tony Treyer, just do the report, and whatever he disagrees, just make notes, I probably would have done that. But sometimes you just need to go in, and I think innocence is bliss in terms of younger careers. So sometimes just do what you feel is right, challenge, innovate, and then along the way you'll find the sponsors and people that are prepared to back you. Don't be the typical sort of accountant that's has a certain fairly predictable.
Ramasela, I see you smiling there. We've now just discussed going into the role and being new. Now you've please take us to a point where you are in the role for a specified period of time. When we were preparing for this chat, you spoke about investing in yourself. How important is that to you, firstly? Secondly, how do you do so? Because now you've taken on this executive position that is demanding so much of you. You still have your family, you still have your own life. How do you continue to invest in yourself, one, and what do you do to invest in yourself?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I always want to be is to be relevant. And this is a very competitive times. Doesn't matter which area you are in, you need to be competitive and you need to be relevant. And I do, I know the work is demanding and with family and everything, but there is a selfish part that I take that is my me time. And I call it selfish time because, I used to feel guilty about it, but it's not. For my family to be able to live the way that I want them to live, there's some investment that together we are making into this. And I've decided a long time ago that I want to be a career person. And I can't now, along the journey with my plan, second guess where I want to go. And I know that for me to be relevant, for me to retire when I feel like I'm ready to retire, there's a lot of investment, continuous investment, that I need to make in any role that I take. And one of the things, as a CFO for some time, that one of the things that we'll say is also invest in other people's business, understanding what other businesses are all about. I remember some years back when I started being a CFO was about technical accounting and mastering, and I was just on top of my game. You won't tell me anything about FRS, but I was missing the business aspect of it. Okay. And you cannot be a CFO and not understand the business. You cannot be a CFO and not understanding human resource. You cannot be a CFO and not understand. So you're continuously in this. But if you want to be a CFO that just want to do financial statement, you will be relegated to a finance manager. You will suddenly see head of finance or a company, if they don't want to retrench you, they will create an FD role where the CFO is there and you'll never understand. You need to continue. So that's what I always say. Continuous investment means that I communicate with my family, what are my plans now, what I need to do, and we work around it. And we find a way. I think over a period of time, it just happens because we understand what we need to do and they understand the value. And when mommy is happy, the house is good.
Okay, allow me to probe a bit more. I'm looking for something specific. There's somebody in the audience who's sitting there saying, but what is the selfish time, Ramasela? What do you do? Did you start to study something? Did you go away alone? Did you take a sabbatical for a month to go to a country that you've never been to? What have you done for yourself?
Oh, it's not that extravagant. I'm still an accountant. No, it's just even during the day. That certain hours, I will get home if I get home on time and manage to go through the homework if I do. But then about an hour or so, and I'm saying, which area worries me about the business? I always do my assessment about different areas of the business. When I was in municipality, when we had 27 departments, I used to say, I'm not getting very clear on our plans, and we had lots of droughts in Gauteng, if you recall the previous years. I'm not getting into my head space. What is our strategy with regard to water? What are we going to do? What is this water department doing? What are other people doing? And I'll be on the net. And the beauty of us now is having information. And I will be just researching about what other countries have done, what other municipalities even are talking about. But it's that continuous investment that, and I also want to challenge my colleagues. So I want to be able to say, whatever you're requesting as your budget cannot be approved because it doesn't affect, or it doesn't even impact what we would like to be impacted. It's not even talking to a strategy. But I can't talk like that if I don't understand their business. I cannot approve or recommend their budget for anything if I don't understand their business. So that selfish time for me is just taking a couple of time, whether I go to the restaurant. I used to do that when I started government. I'll sit in the restaurant with PFMA and just order a glass of water and just go through. just go through PFMA and say, instead of me rushing to be home on the time, I just want to be here, and I just want to understand this thing that really worries me. And after that, then I'll go home. So that's what I'm saying. I don't take a whole lot of time, but in between, I do a lot of investment, and continuously, I don't stop. Continuously, I want to understand. Same with when I go to CAT, I needed to understand what World is selling, what are these machines that, they're calling it in their names. And so that for me is a continuous investment, that I want to be relevant. I refuse to be put in a corner that Ramasela will only ask about the ROE, will talk about why is your debtors book this way. It cannot be about just the debtors book. The debtors book was originated from something, and that something is what I needed to understand.
Thank you so much for that. Mohammed, I think perhaps your environment might be different. What do you do to make sure that you understand the business? What do you do to make sure that you're a strong leader?
I think just in when accountants or people in finance, the problem is you never really have time to go on formal training courses, and training courses that are offered are normally 2 days or 3 days, so it's virtually impossible to keep up to date with what's going on out there. Let alone even just coming to this particular session is quite a challenge. So I think you learn through experience, and you make sure that you are exposed to as much of the business as you can. So for me, it's getting involved in the entire value chain. It's making sure I stay relevant around procurement, commercial, getting involved in sales, getting involved in marketing and branding, and through that you learn, and through that you're able to add value, and you're able to provide financial insights, and that's the way you stay relevant. But if you have a tunnel vision of finance being around financial reporting, and just delivering month ends and forecasts and budgets, you're never really going to get to understand the business. So that's the first aspect. The next aspect is to actually get out to the business and talk to people. I think in talking to people, you learn a lot. So getting in our business, we spread across Africa. So it's getting out to the sites, getting out to the operations, getting into the factories. We an agro-processing business, so getting into the fields, the sugarcane, even though probably don't add much value in terms of telling them how to grow cane or how to process the cane, but it's just getting an understanding when a capital request comes through for a new boiler. At least I know what it looks like, and I can imagine this thing as to why they want it and what it's used for. And then having conversations with non-financial people, so operational people, technical people, people with an agricultural background, and talk about yields, talk about sucrose, talk about temperatures and what does it mean. Not really quizzing them, because I wouldn't know if they're bullshitting me or not. But anyway, at least I'm getting to have a conversation about stuff that I will see up the line. And if we are looking at a project, I know what are the right questions to ask on the project. Because when it comes down to doing an evaluation of a major project or an expansion, I can ask the right questions, not just about what is the net present value, what is the IRR, etc. Because that's just an output of inputs. It's about challenging the inputs, and being able to ask the right questions. And I think that's the key role of a CFO or of finance in general, is to be able to challenge those inputs and not just be the person that takes the inputs and puts it into a model, spits out an answer. If your hurdle rate's 20% and it's 19.5, find a way to make it work to get it to 20%, and then you've done your job. That's not the role. I think the role is to really challenge the input. So for me, it's about getting out there, speaking to people, networking, and then through that you understand the business. It's quite amazing, in 2 to 3 years, you might have churn in your business, a new ops person, director starting, or HR person, a commercial, and then you start to have a conversation with you, and they sit back and think, shit, you know a lot. You're asking the right questions, whereas the previous guy was teaching you, and almost saw you as someone that is his, parting knowledge to, whereas the new guy comes and it's a new base. It's like, this guy knows a lot about the business. So you start to impress people. It's all that experience that you've gathered and knowledge, and you're now starting to use it to your advantage. So that's what it's all about. And then you move to another company, and then they think you're shit hot, because You can now talk about a whole host of things in HR and in operations, etc., that you've learned from your previous job. But it's all about being inquisitive and having an inquiring mind and asking. It comes down, you need to be humble. It needs to be done in a way that people don't feel threatened. They want to talk to you. You're not going to use the information to go back to the boardroom and nail people or show your boss how clever you are that you caught these guys out. So I think that for me, that's how I learn. If I go to a course, my attention span is 1 hour. So if it's a one-day course, after the first 45 minutes, you've lost me. I'm done. Yeah.
I think what resonates between the both of you is that you're both approachable as leaders and you both want a holistic understanding of the businesses that you're in, which is so great. I'm going to give my audience an opportunity to ask just 1 or 2 questions. Looking at the time, is there anyone that would like to find out anything from these 2 CFOs? We go in front. If you'd be so kind as to give me your name, which institution you're from, and then your question.
Hi, I'm Therese from RMD Quickform, not RMB. I have a question to both CFOs, and the question is this. When you're working in an executive team in the tough economic environment that we're in and everyone is under pressure, how do you maintain that balance of not being the overcritical CFO who says we must save more money, we're wasting here, we're wasting there, this control's not working, that control's not working. How do you make sure that you're not seen as being the critical one as opposed to the supportive CFO that helps them get through the tough times?
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Therese. I know Therese from a couple of years ago. Yes. Yeah, I think you in tough times, you don't want to be seen to be the one that's kind of rubbing salt to the wound. I think the whole challenge on control, on costs, etc., you need to do that anyway through the good times and through the bad times. And I often say in the good times, you actually need to be doing that more because that's when sort of the fat or largesse tends to creep in a business, is that you think you're doing well because commodity prices are high and you're making lots of profit. That's when all the bad habits start to creep in and your especially corporate overheads tend to get bloated. So I think that's when you need to be at your toughest in terms of control, in terms of cost cutting. And people need to say like, hey, but we're making money. And you can say, we're not making enough money. We need to be making more margin. And I think that's where you need to be. So when the tough times do come, it's not as if you've all of a sudden just woken up and decided you're going to cut costs. So you need to be consistent around that message. But when the tough times do come, you need to have the ability to work with different functional leaders around what are the drivers and the levers that we need to press around driving more value in the business. So do we need to, from our sales perspective, think about more innovative ways around selling different pack sizes, penetrating new markets? Or during a tough time, do we need to invest? So a lot of people don't invest. There might be some cheap assets out there. So we do need to stretch ourselves, stretch the balance sheet a bit, because as we all know, good times will come again. So for me, it's about being tough in the good times. So when you are tough in the bad times, at least you're consistently tough, but to also partner with different functional leaders to look for opportunity as to how you can grow that margin through the tough times. And if you make money in the good times, hopefully you've got a strong balance sheet in the tough times, so you can ride it through. I've seen a lot of people just capitulate in the tough times because they didn't make enough money in the good times.
Thanks a lot for that, Mohammed. Ramasela, can I have some closing remarks from you?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think back to breaking in the suit and actually making a success when you're there, what I would just like to just end with is the journey is not easy, but it's not impossible. It's doable if you've got your vision clearly outlined, if you've got your plans, you can achieve it and you can make a success of it if you continuously invest in yourself. Challenges will come, but I think challenges is what makes us tough. And that resilient when you're there and you can feel it that, you know what, the moment you say, I can't do it anymore, I think that's the moment when you know you have reached the point of just going for it.
Thank you so much for that. Mohammed, some closing remarks from you, please.
No, I think just the one thing I wanted to say, and I was trying to work it into one of my answers, but I couldn't. But anyway, I think for young of people aspiring to be CFOs, if there's anything I can leave with you, it's to deliver. So, analogy of doing a month-end report. So if you're going to do a month-end report, make sure you deliver it on time and it's accurate, and that's what you get paid to do. You need to innovate. So if it needs to be done in 5 days, try and do it in 3 days and find ways to actually achieve that, to accelerate. Well, that's where we met, and accelerating reporting. Thanks. And then you need to challenge. So I think you always need to challenge. So if head office wants a 50-page report, you need to be able to tell them, why do you need 50 pages? Can I not give it to you in 5 pages? So you need to challenge, and my colleague here, Rob's done that quite successfully at Ilovo. And then I think you need to network. We've discussed networking. So if you well network, you need to be known in the business. And it's not notorious. You need to be known as someone who delivers in the organization. So when the position does come up, so if you're a junior accountant, financial accountant, senior manager, FD, you shouldn't have to put your CV in. They should be calling you because you've got all those attributes. So, and then if you do have to put your CV in and you don't get the job, you shouldn't be surprised. You need to go back and say, why didn't I get it? So I think that's where you want to be. You want to be people must actually be hunting for you. They must want you. I think for me, if you just stick to that, you'll find that getting into moving up the ladder and becoming an FD will be quite easy, as long as you stick to those principles.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, for my panelists.
The question there.